I end up getting review code for a lot of games, many of which I really want to talk about, but sometimes complications come up and for various reasons I can't get a video ready for them in time. So I'm trying some new formats here. In this case, it's commentary over recorded gameplay. I hope you enjoy it. And with that, let's kick it off with Everspace. Everspace is one of those indie games that comes out finished every couple of years that really gets people turning their heads. It's a space dogfighting roguelike in the vein of FTL in some regards, except you have full 3D control of your ship. A lot of people like myself can be put off by investments required by roguelites, but for the 9 hours I played, I really enjoyed my time with Everspace. Unlike a lot of roguelites, this one actually has a story with good voice acting and world building to help elevate it. As you play the game, you encounter a variety of ships, weapons, and power-ups. When you die, you retain your credits and schematics that you've collected as you played, so you can build ship components using schematics, or put points into ship or pilot abilities. There are 3 types of ships you can pilot. The one you are seeing on screen now is the Jack-of-all-trades, Master-of-none starter ship. It's got moderate armor and speed and firepower, but it can't tank or do crazy maneuvers. The other ships are what you would expect. One is very fast and has low armor, but also has cloaking abilities to improve your lifespan. The other is a tanky ship that is fairly slow, but makes up for it with heavy hull armor and extra weaponry. Honestly, the heavy ship, while cool at first for farming larger ships, is a bit of a walking target due to it not having any shields, so every hit is directly to your life bar, so you unavoidably take a lot of damage, constantly needing to repair. I have not unlocked the smaller ship. Part of the reason is because it took so long just to get the heavy one, and now I have to reinvest points either into upgrading the heavy ship, or see if I can get the small cloaking ship to see if that would be a better fit for me. You start with a good amount of tools for your medium ship. You have 2 weapons that use your ship's energy. One is a set of plasma lasers that do a ton of shield damage, and the other is a Gatling gun that does more damage to the hull. You also have missiles which are finite but deal heavy damage, and you also have weapon and shield power-up. The game control's great. It's really fun to zip around space and explore. You have a variety of mechanics impacting your ship. Picking up new weapons and power-ups is always fun, but losing your shields or sensors isn't, especially your sensors. As your ship takes damage, you can lose one of your critical systems. If you lose your shields, your ship takes hull damage. Not a bad mechanic, it adds tension, but when you lose things like the sensor, it can become incredibly frustrating. This is because the game requires you to pay attention to the various icons and markers on your HUD. Your sensors help you see the icons for friendly ships, resources, and even enemy ships. Whenever you lose your sensors, the icons will flicker on screen, but only for a second rather than being constant. This means that you have to stop, wait for the marker to briefly pop up, turn towards the direction of it, and keep doing so until you know exactly where you're going or what you're doing. This wouldn't be so bad if not for the enemies that warp into your sector and hunt you down whenever you spend too much time in an area. At first, it's elite fighters, but later they send larger ships like cruisers at you. The game can be incredibly frustrating in this regard, and from the get-go, nailing down the controls is a very lengthy process, but when you start upgrading your ship and getting used to the controls, the game can be a ton of fun. There's something special about having a big enemy Corvette ship warping into your sector for the sake of just killing you. And while it tries to kill you, it accidentally shoots a neutral ship, and then you watch as the 2 big ships kill each other and collect all their stuff they drop when they both destroy each other. It's great. At $30, the price might seem steep for some, and apparently some users have reported the story feels rushed near the end, and there are some annoying grinding bits due to it being a roguelike with RPG elements. And while the game looks gorgeous even at moderate settings, the performance isn't exactly great. Oftentimes I would dip in the 40 frames per second area, and sometimes even lower during intense combat segments. All negatives being said, the voice acting, the writing, along with the lore is really well done here, and I do enjoy coming up with tricks to grind better that are actually fun, and the ship combat, at least for the first 9 hours, is still good. It takes a bit to get used to, but once you do, you can get a lot out of this game, and there aren't many games like it on the market. I highly recommend checking it out. It's even got VR support. With platforms and engines becoming more and more user-friendly to developers, we are seeing a ton of independently developed titles flooding the market. Just being a competent indie game, unfortunately, means nothing now. You need to have an exceptional, groundbreaking, and/or incredibly unique title to break through this crowding market in order to stand out at all. Especially when it comes to the platforming genre, and Hollow Knight absolutely breaks through that crowd. It takes after 3 games: Dark Souls, Castlevania 1, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now, many games that try nicking mechanics from other titles, particularly Dark Souls for some reason nowadays, often suffer from an identity crisis. Games like The Surge or Salt and Sanctuary might be well reviewed by critics and enjoyed by players, but they can't escape from being called a Souls clone or a Souls-like, and the game ends up being remembered for being like a Dark Souls game rather than the game it's named after. Thankfully, Hollow Knight does not suffer from this. It's a fantastic title on its own. Hollow Knight starts reeling you in with its very simplistic yet fun combat and incredibly tight controls. Enemies telegraph attacks for damage but are left open to a flurry of slashes and magic attacks. It's all about timing. The game does nick mechanics from the Dark Souls series, but the game isn't trying to be incredibly difficult. It can still be very challenging with bosses getting trickier and trickier and some levels requiring more thought when engaging in platforming. It's challenging at times, but it can also be relaxing as you explore the world around you in between boss battles as the game engulfs you in its atmosphere, which is incredible. The game has this Tim Burton Nightmare Before Christmas look with hand-drawn art. It absolutely oozes detail. Sound design is incredible, with attacks that ring or puncture having an echoing effect, and the music for the boss fights really gets you pumped up. The game can sport more than one atmosphere too. At first you start in this deserted and decrepit hollow area, and then you move on later to the left a little bit, and suddenly there is this lush, beautiful area with bright streams of water and colorful grass. It's beautiful. My only complaint is that once again the combat isn't complex, but enemy designs compensate for this as you have a ton of different enemies to fight, and you fight them based on pure reflexes rather than RPG elements. You don't level up your character to get good in this game. You get good by practicing and learning movement patterns. Some might not enjoy the Souls mechanics that are present here, like losing all your currency when you die, or how going into your inventory doesn't pause the game, but when you die you get to fight this cute little apparition of yourself to get your souls back, which is easier than going to the exact spot like in the boss room, like in Dark Souls, because here the apparition usually spawns further away from a dangerous area, and you can bait the apparition closer to you, away from any potential danger. You still have to deal with going into the inventory without being able to pause the game, but there are plenty of safe areas, and you still have a pause button with access to the options menu. No matter what side of the fence you are on with Dark Souls and its various clones as a whole, you shouldn't dismiss this game. The game has gotten several patches addressing many issues, and Team Cherry has also announced an update that would add brand new gameplay content for free. For $15, this is easily the best value for your money of the year so far. It blows my mind that this is Team Cherry's first debut game, and I can't wait to see what else they show us. Highly recommend this one. Definitely check it out. A lot of people like myself were excited for Rise and Shine. Unfortunately, many people, myself included, were met with overwhelming disappointment. Simply put, the game is incredibly difficult, for the wrong reasons. It's a platform gunner that takes place in a world where video games and real life overlap. While the game does have a lot of references, the story and gameplay is fairly original in its own right. The art style oozes superb amounts of talent, and shooting and jumping is very satisfying at times. The controls take a second to get used to, but it's nothing too bad. In fact, it's mostly enjoyable. So why is the game so frustrating and disappointing? Well, it really comes down to the game's trial and error nature. Sometimes the game flat out doesn't tell you how to approach certain challenges, often immediately killing you. If it does show you, it's often poorly shown with messages or cues flashing across the screen. And I do mean they flash across the screen, so you might not see them in time and you end up getting killed almost immediately after the little message. So most fights and encounters in this game will require a do-over, and the game is peppered with moments like this. That boss you just saw me defeat a little bit ago took me at least 20 tries. Among many reasons, the first time my bullets went through the boss like they did nothing, and I had no idea how to hurt him. Turns out you have to wait a few seconds, and then his head will very quickly flash after he does an attack, and then you start shooting him in the head, but only after that flash. Only after that flash. That makes no sense. Most attacks in this game can kill you in 1 or 2 hits, but you don't have temporary invincibility. You have regenerating health, but that doesn't stop you from dying incredibly fast. An example of this is how the game is kind of like a bullet hell. Some attacks, let's say bullets or laser bursts, can overlap or succeed one another. Since there's no temporary invincibility period when taking damage, you can die within an instant from 2 attacks at full health. This part right here is also incredibly frustrating. It's got this great atmosphere going for it, it's dark, it's moody, but these zombie-like enemies you fight only die from headshots. I kept dying because they soak up so much damage if you don't point at their heads. How am I supposed to know this? No other basic enemy dies exclusively from headshots or take extra damage, and it was never conveyed that these zombies can only die from headshots. I had to figure it out by accident. I tried reviewing this game a while back, and I came back to it for this video because I had a lot of notes written down, and I thought the game might be better because I would be tackling it with this fresh new attitude. Nope, it's still miserable. The difficulty feels like padding. Apparently the game can be beaten in 2 hours if you cut out most of the deaths. It's a shame because I really dig a lot of what Rise and Shine has to offer. The art is incredible, especially for the level design. Alright guys, thank you for watching. I know I've been on a bit of a hiatus recently. Real life happened, and in between that, whenever I had time to do a video, something would always go wrong. I got a grip on my capture card and my recording software finally, so there should be fewer issues in the future. But I am sad to say I will be going on yet another hiatus. I'm going to be out of the state for a bit, specifically a month, and I will be going back to school and possibly returning to my part-time job. I got a lot of stuff I need to sort out, and I don't know if there's a future for this channel. But I do enjoy talking about video games, and when everything works, and lately things haven't, it can be a lot of fun. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm out.